Now, this might sound like a rather bold claim to make, and it might shock some sensibilities. But if you bear with me for these few minutes, I think that you will get a sense of what I'm getting at. It's often said that the most abstract philosophers, the ones that have kind of crazy ideas, and you're not quite sure what to make of those ideas, are either INTP or ENTP. If it's kind of crazy and goes in all directions, then it has to be ENTP somehow. If it's a little bit more organized, and you sense that the author has at least the author has the key of what they mean, and that there's something really organized there, except that it's kind of cryptic and impenetrable to you as a reader, then there's a tendency to think INTP. You could take the works of Deleuze, for example, as an example. You could take, in this case, maybe more ENFP, but the case of Derrida, the work of Foucault as well, who's often typed ENTP. I'm not going to make a claim about the type of these particular thinkers. I just want to emphasize that there is a misunderstanding about TI dominance and also TINE, which you should always forget. You should never forget. Interesting slip. You should never forget means TINESI. Okay? So an INTP, like any TI dominant, is concerned to be clear. Their articulation, at least in writing, will always aim at cutting out the fat and at having a landscape of thought that is purified of inconsistencies, of incoherences, and of ambiguities. Okay? Now, that doesn't really sound like cryptic, inaccessible, and obscure writing, at least writing that strikes a lot of people as obscure, because it's not. And in the case of an ENTP, we just have the extroverted version of that. So we'll have that, but just a little bit less of a concern with clarity, consistency, and lack of ambiguity, and more of an emphasis on generating new ideas. But these ideas, insofar as they're directly linked to extroverted perception, are hooked onto the world. So they're not that difficult to understand. They're not that cryptic. They're not that obscure. What is going to make writing seem obscure to people? Writing that does not seem to have transparent clarity. Transparency is a TI value. At a push, you could say it's a TINE value. If you inverse that, it's also an NETI value. It's not an NI value. We know that NI is not transparent. And we know that in the case of INFJs, TI is there, but it's tertiary. It's child. So TI in the INFJ is never going to be concerned with overtaking the position of NI. It's going to make what seems like obscurity a little bit more structured, a little bit more organized. You can see that, in fact, in my books, which, by the way, you can get. The Ecstatic Soul, which looks at the consciousness of the INFJ, the mind of the INFJ, and the Infinite Soul, which looks at the INFJ in the modern world and how to lead a happy life and a productive and a fruitful life as an INFJ. Well, my two books, which you can get at the link below, are both written in that style. I mean, there is clarity, partly because I believe I have fairly developed judging functions, FETI. It's not by surprise, it's not a big surprise that there are places where I have been typed TI dominant and other places where I've been typed FE dominant, because I have those functions rather well developed. But really fundamentally, if you're going to come across highly NI-driven writers whose functions of judgment are perhaps a little bit taking a back seat, you're all the more likely to experience the writing of these people as sometimes baffling, certainly ambiguous, because NI is full of ambiguity. NI is not the discrete literal function of perception that SI is. NI is all about the continuity. It's all about one theme folding into another without a clear separation. So if you're right in the middle of that crossing, if you're in that interstice, it's ambiguous by definition. And a lot of NI writers play on those ambiguities. If they go too far into that, they may be, with justice, called unnecessarily obscure. But a lot of the time, what you will find when you're engaging the work of highly NI-driven thinkers is the point is often not to try to parse the writing, to try to make it completely transparent, because if you try to do that, in some sense, you lose the substance and you lose the point and you lose the originality of what's in there. Usually it's a matter of an intuition meeting another intuition. You intuit what's useful, you intuit what's significant and what's meaningful, but you don't always have to try to parse it and analyze and analyze and analyze. And that applies to INTJs as well. It's possible and even likely that the most obscure thinkers have been INTJs with TE not very well developed. Because then you get NI, and then you get FI, which is a function that seeks clarification very subjectively for the person in terms of how they feel. So that actually adds to the obscurity and the cryptic nature of the writing, rather than subtract from it, like TI can often achieve. Okay? So most obscure thinkers, most difficult to penetrate thinkers, usually NI dominant. By the way, guys, just as a last remark, you know that my Patreon is in existence, and if you join my Patreon, you get access to our Discord server, the Fourfold. You get access to bonus videos every 2-3 weeks on a topic of your choosing, where I go deeply into that topic, and that I could not do it without you. So please consider supporting me. The link is below. See you soon, guys. Bye-bye.